What IELTS band are you really at right now? Well, in this video, you will do a 40-question test covering grammar, vocabulary, sentence structure, and more. The questions will start from B1 level and go all the way up to C2. Each level has 10 questions, and your total score will give you an approximate IELTS band. Now, please note that this isn't an official assessment. It's just a fun way to see where you are. So grab a pen, grab a piece of paper, keep track of your answers, and let's get started. B1 questions. So let's start with the vocabulary questions. Number 1, which word is spelled correctly? Accommodation, opportunity, success, recommend. The answer is C, success. For the other words, their correct spellings are listed below the answers. Question number 2. Choose the correct collocation. She, something, a decision to study abroad. Did, made, created, or took. The answer is made. We normally use the word make with decision, and in this case, we're talking about the past. Question 3. What does the word in bold mean? Many students feel nervous before the IELTS exam. Confident, relaxed, worried, or excited. The answer is worried. Nervous means a bit worried or a bit anxious. Moving to question 4. Which sentence is not correct? I did a mistake in my essay. I made a mistake in my essay. I found a mistake in my essay. Or I corrected a mistake in my essay. The answer is A, I did a mistake in my essay. We normally don't use the word did or do with mistake. Moving on to question 5. Choose the word that is closest in meaning to the word in bold. The government plans to reduce taxes next year. Increase, cut, ignore, collect. The answer is cut. Cut is another way to say reduce, and we can often use it with the word taxes, so to reduce taxes. Now let's move on to the grammar questions for B1. 6. Choose the correct verb form. She something to the library yesterday. Goes, has gone, went, going. The answer is went, or C, went, because yesterday obviously shows the past, so we use the past simple of go, which is went. Moving to question 7. Choose the correct preposition. He is interested, studying abroad. On, in, at, for. Well, the answer is in. He's interested in studying abroad. Normally with interested, we say in, okay, to be interested in something. Moving to question 8. Which sentence is not correct? She can speak English fluently. She can too speak English fluently. She speaks English fluently. She is speaking English fluently. Well, the answer is B. She can too speak English fluently. After a modal verb like can, we need to use the base verb. So speak, we do not have can and then to plus a verb. Moving to question 9. Put the words in the correct order. Always, breakfast, I, eat, before work. So A, I eat always breakfast before work. I always eat breakfast before work. Always I eat breakfast before work. I eat breakfast before always work. Well, the correct answer there is B. I always eat breakfast before work. This just comes down to sentence structure. We normally say I always, then we have the verb, and then we give more information. Let's go to question 10. Choose the correct option. If it's something tomorrow, we will stay at home. Will rain, rained, rains, raining. Well, the answer is C, rains. If it rains tomorrow, we will stay at home. So this is the first conditional, and we use the present simple after if. So if plus present simple, then we have will plus verb. And for the present simple, we need to use verb 1, which is rain. All right, congratulations. They were the first 10 questions. They're all done now. They were obviously pretty easy. So now let's move on to the B2 questions. Again, let's start with vocabulary. Question 11. Choose the word that best completes the sentence. Many students struggle to something, their ideas clearly in the writing test. Descript, express, say, tell. The answer there is B, express, because express means to share your thoughts or your feelings or your ideas, normally through words. Now, descript isn't a word, so it definitely wouldn't be A. Question 12. What does the word in bold most nearly mean? So what's the synonym for the word in bold? The results were significant. Is it A, small, B, unimportant, C, important, or D, surprising? The answer there is C, important. In this case, we're saying that the results were important. 13. Choose the correct collocation. Now, collocation, if you don't know, means two or more than two words that naturally go together. We already looked at one example before, to make a mistake. So A, do, B, making, C, introduce, or D, build. The answer is C, introduce. We normally use introduce with regulations, and it simply means to create and start using new rules. And when it comes to introducing regulations, we don't use make or do because we don't build, and we don't build regulations. 14. Which word is closest in meaning to the bold word? The company is trying to expand its business internationally. Reduce, grow, limit, organize. Well, the answer there is B, grow. Expand simply means to become larger or to grow. Let's move on to 15. Which sentence uses the word in bold correctly? The problem is very serious and needs immediate attention. The problem is very serious and needs immediate careful. The problem is very serious and needs immediate solving. And finally, D, the problem is very serious and needs immediate solve. The answer there is A. Okay, after needs, we normally use a noun phrase. Okay, needs immediate, and then attention, which is a noun. All right, let's move on to the grammar questions now for B2. 16. Choose the correct option. By the time I arrived, the lecture. A, already started. B, has already started. C, had already started. Or D, D, was already starting. Well, the answer there is C, had already started. We've got two past actions, right? and they happened before, one happened before the other. So we use past perfect to describe this situation and talk about the first action. 17. Which sentence is grammatically correct? See, she suggested to go earlier. She suggested going earlier. She suggested go earlier. Or D, she suggested that we to go earlier. Well, the answer here is B. After suggest, we normally use a gerund. Now, a gerund means a verb plus ing. We don't say suggest and then to go. 18. Choose the correct modal verb. Students something submit their assignments by Friday. It's compulsory. Should, might, must, could. The answer there is C, must. We use must because we're talking about something you need to do, obligation you cannot choose. Now, when it comes to something like should, that's advice, not an obligation. And if you look at the word compulsory, compulsory means it's something you must do, okay? You cannot choose. 19. Complete the second conditional sentence. If I something more time, I would travel abroad. Have, had, will have, would have. The answer there is B, had. Okay, when we have the second conditional, we use the past simple in the first clause. Okay, so if I had more time, I would travel abroad. 20. Choose the correct relative clause. The book I bought yesterday is very useful. Who, what, where, which. The answer there is which. Okay, which is used for things, who for people, where is for places, and what we can't use to replace a relative pronoun like this. So 20 questions down, 20 questions to go. How are you going so far? Comment down below and let me know your score. Let's move on to the next ones, which are the C1 questions. Again, let's start with the vocabulary. In the sentence, the committee reached a consensus after hours of discussion. What does consensus mean? A disagreement? A final decision made by one person? A general agreement? Or a quick guess? The answer there is C, okay, a general agreement. Consensus simply means most people or everyone agrees on the same decision. 22. In the sentence, there was a subtle change in his tone. What does subtle mean? It's very obvious, small but noticeable, loud and aggressive, or completely random. The answer there is B, small but noticeable. Now, subtle simply means it's not easy to see at first, so it's something like a slight change. 23. Which sentence uses the word reluctant correctly? The manager was reluctant to approve the proposal because he fully supported it. The project was reluctant to begin on time. He felt reluctant and willing at the same time about the decision. She was reluctant to speak in public due to her anxiety. The answer there is D. Okay, reluctant describes a person or a feeling when you don't really want to do something. So it says she had anxiety. Anxiety means you're nervous. So if you're nervous about something, you probably don't want to do it. Just looking at B, it's talking about a project, or a project doesn't have feelings, so we couldn't use reluctant there. 24. Choose the word closest in meaning to the bold word. The government decided to allocate more funding to education. Distribute, remove, reduce, waste. The answer there is A, distribute. Allocate means when you assign or you give resources for a specific purpose or a specific reason. And in this case, the specific reason is to give money to education or for education. 25. Choose the most appropriate word in a formal context. The company is trying to something its reputation after the scandal. Fix, repair, restore, make better. The answer there is restore, C. Restore its reputation. Yeah, it's very natural and it's very formal. Fix and repair, they sound too informal. Now let's move on to the grammar questions. Choose the correct option. The manager insisted that the report before Friday is completed, was completed, to be completed, be completed. The answer there is D, be completed. After something like insist, we use the base verb because we're talking about something that should happen, not something that has already happened in this case here. 27, only after the meeting, something, the serious of the issue. We realized, did we realize, we did realize, or had we realized. The answer there is B, did we realize? So when a sentence starts with something like only after, we're using inversion here. So inversion means when you have the auxiliary and then the subject. Okay, so did we realize? Now, normally, if you say, did we realize, that is a question. But here, no. 28. Complete the sentence. Had she been informed earlier, she, the mistake, would avoid, would have avoided, will have avoided, or de-avoided. The answer there is B, would have avoided. Had she been informed is third conditional, so we use would have plus past participle here. 29. Which of the following sentences is correct? Not only he apologized, but he also offered compensation. Not only did he apologize, but he also offered compensation. Not only he did apologize, but he also offered compensation. And finally, not only apologized he, but he also offered compensation. Well, the answer there, guys, is B. Not only did he apologize, but he also offered compensation. So again, just like with the previous one, if something starts with not only, we might be using inversion. So you have the auxiliary and then the subject. Question 30, last one for C1. Which of the following sentences is correct? What she lacks is experience and confidence. What she lacks are experience and confidence. What she lacks were experience and confidence. What she lacks have experience and confidence. Well, the answer there is A. Okay, what she lacks is singular. Okay, what she lacks is singular. So we use is even if we've got two nouns. Okay, we've got experience and confidence. Well, that's two nouns, but what she lacks is singular. That's why we use is. Okay, 30 questions down, 10 to go. These are going to be the hardest ones, so good luck. Let's get started with the C2 questions. All right, 31, vocabulary first. What does the idiom to throw someone under the bus mean? to publicly support someone, to sacrifice someone for personal gain, to protect someone from criticism, to ignore someone completely. The answer there is B, okay, to sacrifice someone for personal gain. Okay, so it's sort of, in other words, it means to do something bad to someone to get something for yourself. 32, which of the following is not a correct meaning of the idiom to toe the line? To conform to rules or authority, to follow instructions carefully, to challenge authority openly, to behave in an obedient way. Well, the answer there is to challenge authority openly. Just by looking at the other ones, you can probably work out the meaning of to toe the line. So yeah, let's move on to 33. Which word best completes the sentence? The CEO's comments were deliberately leaving room for multiple interpretations. Ambiguous, arrogant, abrupt, transparent. The answer is ambiguous, A, because ambiguous means not clear and something that might have more than one meaning. And in the sentence, it says room for multiple interpretations, multiple ways to understand something. 34. Which of the following sentences uses the word notorious correctly? She was notorious for her kindness and generosity. The scientist became notorious for discovering a new vaccine. He was notorious among friends for being punctual. The company became notorious for repeated safety violations. The answer there is D. Okay, the company became notorious for repeated safety violations, because notorious, it means when you're well known for something or famous for something that's bad. And if you look at that question D, a safety violation, that's obviously a negative thing. That's why we say notorious. If you look at A, for example, kindness and generosity, they're generally considered to be positive things, which is why we couldn't use notorious there. All right, 35. Which of the following sentences uses the word arbitrary correctly? The decision was arbitrary and based on clear evidence. The punishment seemed arbitrary with no clear justification. She gave an arbitrary explanation that was very detailed. The results were arbitrary because they were predictable. Well, the answer there is B. The punishment seemed arbitrary with no clear justification. Well, arbitrary means there's no reason behind it. It's based more on chance. So if you look at B, it says clear justification. Well, clear justification is a reason, right? But remember, arbitrary means not having reason or not having logic. Okay, let's move on to the grammar questions. Complete the sentence below. Had it not been for her intervention, the project will fail, would have failed, has failed. The answer there is C. Okay, had it not been for complicated grammar here, is an inverted third conditional. So that means we use have plus past participle to talk about an unreal past result, okay, something that did not happen in the past. 37, choose the correct option. So persuasive, something, that even his critics were convinced. His argument was his argument, did his argument did. The correct answer there is B, was his argument. Okay, when you have so plus adjective, we use inversion. And remember, we've talked about inversion. You have that verb before the subject. 38. Which sentence correctly expresses a mixed conditional? If she studied harder, she would have passed the exam. If she had studied harder, she would have passed the exam. If she studies harder, she would have passed the exam. If she had studied harder, she would pass the exam now. Well, the answer there is D. If she had studied harder, she would pass the exam now. Because this links a past condition to a present result. Okay, that is a mixed conditional. 39. Which sentence correctly uses emphasis? What she did was resign immediately. What she did was resigned immediately. What she did, she resigned immediately. What did she was resign immediately. Well, the answer there is A. What she did was resign immediately. This is called a cleft structure, and we use it for emphasis or to really make something a bit stronger. So we say what plus clause plus the verb to be plus the base verb here. Question 40. Identify the sentence that is incorrect. She claims to have completed the task. He is alleged to have falsified the data. They were made to apologize for the mistake. They let her to leave early. Well, the answer there is D. Okay, after let, we use the base verb without to. So we would have to say they let her leave early. Congratulations on getting this far and completing all 40 questions. Now let's have a look at a table which shows you approximately what score you are. So if you're a band 7 or higher, that means you would have needed to get 30 or 31 correct or even more. If you're below that, that means you might be a 6.5 or less. If you got something much higher, like 37 or 38, that's fantastic. That means you could be a band 8.5. But please remember, guys, this is just for education, for entertainment purposes, and this is not your real IELTS score. So comment your score down below. I'd love to see what your score was. And if you want to learn why smart people still fail IELTS, check out this video right here. Thanks for watching and see you in the next lesson.